I was young at least. That's how it felt when the doctor looked at me with that serious, "I'm sorry, but" expression and said the words I'll never forget: stage 3 cancer. It was as if the floor fell out beneath me, and suddenly I was staring into the abyss of an uncertain future. I don't think I fully grasped the weight of what he said, but I knew it wasn't good. I was young, I was scared, and I had no idea what to expect. At the time, my savings were enough to cover my medical expenses for about a year, but that didn't factor in all the things I didn't know I'd need, like someone to help me recover afterward. I wasn't married, had no family close by, and I certainly didn't have the kind of money it would take to hire a nurse to help me during my recovery. It felt like I was about to face an uphill battle with nothing but a pair of shoestrings. After the surgery and a few more days in the hospital, they said, "You're good to go," as if being discharged meant everything was fine, but I knew it wasn't. I was exhausted, weak, and terrified of the idea of being alone at home with no one to watch over me. That's when a man named George, of all people, stepped into the picture. George wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a nurse. Heck, I don't even think he had much medical experience at all. He was just a guy who had a good heart, apparently, and a lot of time on his hands. He told me, in his calm, steady voice, that he would come by twice a day to check on me, help me with anything I needed, and make sure I was taking care of myself until I was back on my feet. Twice a day, you might as well have said twice a week, because I wasn't sure I trusted anyone who wasn't wearing scrubs. In my mind, I was thinking, what does this guy have to gain from all this? I mean, seriously, who offers to do that for a total stranger? But, well, what did I have to lose? My life, sure, but that was already hanging in the balance. So, I agreed. I figured, if nothing else, I'd get a little company and maybe someone to help me not totally screw up my recovery. I didn't expect much, but George showed up like clockwork every single day. Morning and evening, he'd arrive, sometimes with little gifts like magazines, or, this one really got me, a homemade pot of soup. I didn't know it at the time, but that soup was probably his secret weapon to winning me over. It was delicious, and at the time, I couldn't even taste most things, but it still brought comfort in a way I hadn't known I needed. Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, I started to heal. George never asked for anything in return. No money, no favors. Just a steady presence, always there, always willing to help. It wasn't long before I started looking forward to those visits, something I never thought would happen. I thought I'd be counting down the days until I could finally stand on my own 2 feet, but instead, I found myself dreading the day he wouldn't be there anymore. By the time I was well enough to go back to work, George was practically a part of my daily routine. He'd helped me through more than just physical recovery. He'd helped me rebuild my faith in the world, and maybe even in myself. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, he asked me out on a date. I was floored. Wait, what? I was still trying to process the idea of being in the same room as someone who wasn't wearing a hospital gown, and now this guy, this man who had been a stranger just a few months ago, was asking me on a date. He never gave me a clue that he liked me as a potential girlfriend. I almost said no, out of sheer confusion. But I was curious, and honestly, by that point, I figured, why not? What's the worst that could happen? Besides, if I could trust him with my life during my recovery, maybe I could trust him with a dinner date. Well, it turned out I had stumbled into something I never expected. 35 years, 2 kids, and countless adventures later, I can look back and say without a doubt, if it wasn't for that cancer, I would have never met the love of my life. If it weren't for cancer, I never would have met George. I would never have had the chance to see how much love and goodness can come from the most unexpected places. We've built a life together, one filled with laughter, challenges, and everything in between. We've raised children, supported each other through hard times, and found joy in the simple moments. Looking back, I can see that cancer didn't just teach me about the fragility of life. It taught me about the power of kindness, of human connection, and the unexpected ways in which life can surprise you. It taught me that sometimes, when you feel like you have nothing left to give, someone else is there, offering a gift you never could have imagined. I'm grateful every day that George walked into my life when he did. And I'm grateful for that moment of vulnerability, that leap of faith I took all those years ago. If it hadn't been for him, for the love and care he gave me when I needed it most, I wouldn't have the life I have today. Sometimes, the most beautiful things in life come from the darkest moments.